Good morning or good afternoon. Good morning for us here in Michigan. Good afternoon, evening for many of you around the world. And we have many participants from Greece, from what I can see. Yeah, people are joining in. Thank you for spending almost an hour with us today, learning a little more about ECPE. So my name is Fernando Florking. I'm the Director of Marketing Communications and Stakeholder Relations with Michigan Language Assessment. And my colleague here, Rachel?
I'm Rachel Bassi, and I'm an Assessment Supervisor at Michigan Language Assessment.
So thanks for joining us today. We're going to be talking about ECPE Writing, a little bit information about the tasks, how to be better prepared for the three types of tasks that you can see. The responses will share a few examples so you can see satisfactory and unsatisfactory performances, and a few ideas to help you prepare for the test. And we will be answering several of the questions. Thanks for answering many of the questions when you register for this session. It was very good to know what you wanted to know. So we kind of included many of those as part of the webinar today. We'll be talking about mostly the ECPE, the writing section of the ECPE, not about the other sections. And you have a lot of information on our website that you can look at. Of course, there are many effective ways to learn English, and your teachers know a lot about teaching English and helping you prepare for the exam. So follow their suggestions and their recommendations. They know you the best, and they will help you with your own process. There's a Q&A section where you can submit questions, and we'll ask you to write a few comments on the chat as well, so that we can hear what you're saying and interact a little bit with you. It was good to know a little about your background, and most of you have been studying English for quite some time, so you will be pretty easy to take a ECPE, I'm sure. More than 7 to 10 years, more than 50% of people who register for the webinar. And in terms of preparing for the ECPE, most of you, the great majority, more than 40%, have been spending between 7 to 12 months or more than a year. So this will definitely, your efforts will pay off. So what is expected at this level of English proficiency, Rachel, in terms of preparing for ECPE?
So this is a little snippet from the CEFR, which is the Common European Framework of Reference. That's a set of a lot of different scales and a lot of different can-do statements for all kinds of skills that you could have in English. So this comes from the C2 level writing. And this is really descriptive, basically, of what a C2 level writer should be able to do at this level. So this is really what guided us when we completed the revision of the ECPE writing section a few years ago, in terms of creating the tasks that were specifically tailored to the C2 level, including the different genres, inclusion of the sources, and also when we developed the rating scale as well. So you can just read through and see what a C2 level writer looks like in these descriptors.
And if you have any questions or comments, you can write them on the chat. We'll see those, and if we have a way to connect those ideas to what we're talking about, we'll answer some of them. At least tell us where you're joining us from, and what if you have any additional comments on what Rachel was saying in terms of your skills at the C2 level.
Okay, so now we'll look at some of the different types of writing tasks for the ECPE and also the rating scale. We'll go over that as well. So some of the questions that you asked: what is the difference between an essay, an article, and a proposal? How long do we have to write? What is the appropriate structure for each of the writing prompts? So we will include that information here too. For the ECPE writing section, you have 45 minutes to complete the task. You would write only on one task, as you know, but we give two options for what to write about, for what kind of task to write about. And then we have 3 sources, and at least one of them has to be included within the response that you write. So let's take a look at the tasks. So you'll see here we've got 3 sources on the top, and then the 2 different tasks, in this case, an article and an essay. The second task is always going to be an essay. So if you don't feel quite comfortable writing in the different genres, the article or the proposal, you'll always have the option to do the essay. So let's look at the article. This usually starts with a real life example of something that's happening. A delivery company in your city is planning to start using robots to deliver packages to homes and businesses. Many people are concerned about this idea, so the multiple viewpoints on this issue come into play. That's very important. Write an article for a local news website explaining the impact of the delivery company's decision and what you think about it. So this part tells you the genre that needs to be written, the article in this case, and instructs you to include your opinion. And then finally, include at least one piece of information given above to support your response. So that means one piece of information in terms of the sources. Taking a look at the essay, at the beginning we have a claim. Online shopping has made many products accessible to more people. And then we have the question, again addressing the multiple viewpoints of this issue. What positive and negative effects might this have? The task instruction, write an essay addressing this topic and explain your opinion about it. And the source instruction, include at least one piece of information given above to support your response. So it's very important just from the beginning to read the task carefully and make sure in your response you are addressing all of the elements of the instructions. So writing an article, explaining the impact, what you think about it, and including at least one piece of information. And you're addressing the prompt specific topic. So if the article is asking you to write about the delivery robots in the city, you're writing specifically about that. You're not just writing about robots in general.
Yeah, this is really important to really look at the prompt and what you're choosing to write about, so that this is telling you exactly what to do. So make sure that you're doing this, look at the claim and mainly talk about that topic and what are the positive and negative aspects that you want to elaborate on. This is an example of a proposal.
Okay, so here we have the proposal task. Again, it's going to be starting with a pretty true to life specific situation. A local company wants to allow its employees to make decisions about their working hours and create their own schedules for coming into the office. Some people at the company think this is not a good idea, so the multiple viewpoints on the issue. Write a proposal to the president of the company. So you're writing the proposal to a specific person, evaluating the different options, and explain what you think should be done, your opinion. Include at least one piece of information given above to support your response. So again, it's important to read the entire instruction and address all of the elements that you're being asked to do. Okay, so some questions about the sources. So why do we include the sources? Well, that's a big part of C2 level writing, is being able to include sources and source material in your response. So when you're developing your argument, you're using that kind of source material just like you would in an academic essay, or like somebody might in a newspaper article or in a proposal. So including those and integrating those into the arguments is really important. Be careful not to use the source material as your only argument. So what we're looking for is, in terms of development, that you have your own argument, that you are integrating pieces of that argument into the main body paragraphs, and you're using the sources to support your argument. So are the sources being used to support your argument? Are they being integrated into the response properly? So you're not just putting the quote and then not addressing why it's important for your argument. You're actually using it as a kind of a flowing continuation of the support for your own argument. So let's see. How can I implement? Okay, so here we go. You had a lot of questions also about, just in general, how is the writing section for the ECPE scored? So we're just going to go over a little bit of the ECPE writing scale. And this scale is what the raters are using to score your response. So if you're wondering, well, why is my response given a specific score? You can refer to this rating scale and think about why, you have different areas of strengths and different areas that need to be improved. So we've got 4 different categories: task completion, development, language, and authorial voice. Task completion and development have 5 possible points each. Language has 7, and authorial voice has 3. So we'll go over each of them. Task completion is related to just what we were talking about before. So are you addressing a prompt-specific topic in your response, and are you following all the instructions for the task? You're giving your opinion, you're explaining multiple viewpoints of the issue, and you're also integrating the source into your response. So that's basically what task completion is covering. In terms of development, we're looking at the ideas and how well they're supported, and also the organization. So are you giving support for your ideas, and is the response clearly and logically organized? That's all part of development. For language, we're looking at the flexibility and the ways that grammar is used. So we're looking for complex syntactic structures being used. You're taking some risks and using some complex syntactic structures appropriately and accurately. And also the vocabulary. So is sophisticated vocabulary being used appropriately? That's really important. Putting big words into the response is great, but if it's obvious that you don't know the meaning of the words, then it can be confusing for the reader. So thinking about the context, or for the reader. So thinking about the context of the words, and are those being used appropriately? And then finally, authorial voice. Authorial voice is looking at the originality of the content. So are you moving beyond the prompt and the sources and actually putting some original content as part of your development of your ideas? Are you integrating examples? Are you thinking about the context of your local society and integrating things about that as well? So the originality of the content, and also the response and its reader engagement. So are you using devices or strategies that are going to engage your reader? Are you thinking about the reader and who you're writing to? That's all part of authorial voice.
Is it okay to use American or British English, Rachel?
Doesn't matter. It does not matter. Yes, you will not be penalized in any way for using British English, even though technically our tests are testing American English. Also, we get a lot of questions about spelling and mechanics. That is not included in the rating scale. Spelling can have a negative impact on a reader, but it is not necessarily part of the scale. So, practice your spelling, try to make sure that it's intelligible for the reader, but it's not going to be part of the scale where points will be taken away for spelling mistakes. Okay, questions. Should I write a title for the essay and the length of the essay? One of my favorite questions about the length of the essay. Can't tell you how many essays I've read that have been so long, but there's no development in them. They're repeating the same ideas. Maybe there aren't clear ideas. And the examples or whatever support is given is just not supporting the argument. So instead of focusing on the length of the essay, I would instead focus on the development of the essay. So are you including 2 or 3 ideas that are related to the topic and developing those in a very concrete way? That's the most important thing here. Are you including examples? Are you supporting your argument? Are you integrating the sources into your argument and then expanding on why they're relevant? All of that is related to development, and that's the most important thing to focus on, not the length. In terms of a title, it's nice to include a title, but again, it's not going to be something that gets points taken away for not doing so. So it's totally up to you if you include a title for your essay.
There's a question from Efrosini, whether essays are always about positive and negative aspects.
So for ECPE, part of what a C2 level writer should be doing is integrating different viewpoints of the issue. So it could be positives, negatives, or anywhere in between. And when we write these prompts and review these prompts, we're looking for topics And we're looking for sources that are going to convey multiple different viewpoints of an issue. So addressing those multiple viewpoints is very important. It doesn't matter what order they're addressed in, it just matters that they're addressed. So now we're going to take a look at some writing samples of performance from real test takers. So we'll be starting with an essay. So this essay, the topic is use of social media. Use of social media has led to a decline in the reading of books and other print materials. What impact might this have on society? Write an essay addressing the topic and give your opinion about it. Include at least one piece of information given above to support your response.
So this is what this test taker said. Nowadays, the majority of people use their phone all day, surfing on internet or using social media. Only a small amount of people still read books, magazines, or newspaper. This will cause serious problems for future and will have bad impacts on society. Reading books have a lot of advantages. According to a 2019 news article, reading helps to have a better language and using better words. Also helps not have a lot of stress and learn how to control it. Furthermore, reading develops skills for critical thinking and understand complex ideas. Additionally, reading helps to open your horizon and think more logically, so if people do not read books, will have a really bad impact for society. As a 2018 report says, in 1975, the majority of people had reading as a daily habit, but now only 16% read books. This will have a bad impact because a lot of people are not educated enough and do not know how to talk more formal. Also, the amount of people who are unemployed will increase. In addition, because a lot of people will not have a job, they will start theft. As a result, the society will be worse than it was really a long time ago, and we are not going to be better than before as we should. In conclusion, we have to increase the amount of people who read books for a better future and leave for a while our phones so we could be more educated and smarter than we are now.
Okay. So thinking about this essay response.
You can indicate in the chat if you think it's satisfactory or unsatisfactory.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. What do you think? Do you think this is a satisfactory response or not?
It isn't, it is, it is not. Oh, we have
mixed
divided opinions here.
It's pretty good. It's too informal. I don't think it's the best.
Okay.
It's developed, but the vocabulary isn't great. Okay. So let's look at some of the comments on this response. So for task completion, the writer addresses the prompt-specific topic and fulfills the task requirements. The writer also includes provided sources. However, he does not integrate the sources into the response. He includes them, but does not integrate. You can see that in paragraph 3. In terms of development, the writer includes support for his claims, but they're not fully developed. However, the response is well organized. And language, the response demonstrates the writer's control over simple but not complex syntactic structures. Simpler vocabulary, words, and phrases are used from the prompt, but repeatedly. And authorial voice. The content in the response is original, but overall the response is not particularly engaging for the reader. Somebody actually asked before in the chat how many of the sources need to be included. So you can include as many sources as you'd like, but a minimum of one source needs to be included in the response. This overall is a satisfactory response. It's not perfect, but it is enough to pass the ECPE. Okay, some more questions. Is it necessary to have both opinions in an article? So definitely addressing multiple viewpoints on the issue, but yes, you need to include your opinion in the article, essay, or proposal. That's a very important component of the task completion. How can we be flexible in an article, and how can an article be totally wrong? I'm not sure what the last one is asking, but how can we be flexible in terms of grammar? I think using different structures, simple and complex structures, And how can an article be totally wrong? I'm not sure. I don't know how it can.
But just follow the guidelines that you have from the instructions
Right.
for that particular prompt. And if you're not doing that, it will be wrong.
Exactly. Okay, let's see. So this is the article task. A local city council wants to close several downtown streets to personal automobile traffic in order to make the downtown area more pedestrian friendly. Many shop owners are concerned about this idea. Write an opinion article for the community website addressing the various viewpoints on this issue and your opinion about it. Include at least one piece of information given above to support your response.
So we typed it so it would be easier to read because it's very hard to read from the actual, but you see how the test taker wrote it. So it starts with a title, Make Our City Healthier. According to a recent decision of our local city council to close several downtown streets to personal automobile traffic in order to make the downtown area more pedestrian friendly, I want to mention the positive results as also the negative results and last my opinion about the topic. On the one hand, we have the people who agree with this opinion because this action would be beneficial for our environment, which is in a very difficult condition the last few years. Also, as a 2019 UK study showed, the gasoline cars are the most harmful emission of transportation. In addition, this decision will make more people go for walking, as they will not have another option if they want to cross these downtown streets. On the other hand, we have the people who believe that this decision will be a problem for them, as many people who walk on those streets are as employees, they will have less income. To be more specific, many people who buy products from their stores will not visit them due to lack of access. Finally, in my opinion, I think that this decision would be very beneficial for our area, as we would have a non-polluted environment, which would help us to be healthier and happier.
So what do you think? Is this a satisfactory or an unsatisfactory response to the article prompt?
It is not
Unsatisfactory.
Unsatisfactory.
Absolutely not. Wow, we've got some strong opinions about this one.
It's okay.
All right.
It's too small.
Girl, no. Okay. All right, so let's take a look at the commentary for this one. Okay, so for task completion, the response includes a discussion about the topic. The writer includes but does not integrate 2 of the provided sources. For the development, the writer organizes the essay logically and uses cohesive devices. However, the ideas are not well supported or developed. The writer's opinion is provided, but it is not a logical conclusion from the arguments in the previous paragraph. In terms of language, the writer demonstrates some control of simple grammatical structures, but most complex structures have errors. Simple vocabulary that is appropriate for the prompt is used accurately, but some attempts at more complex vocabulary are confusing. And authorial voice, the writer rarely includes ideas or details or ideas beyond what is given in the prompt and the source material, and no attempts are made to engage the reader. So overall, this is an unsatisfactory response.
So there are, as the 2 samples so far show, there are some positive things and negative things, but overall, in this case, the response does not meet the expectations for this ECPE writing.
Exactly. And we've also got an example of a proposal task. Someone was asking in the chat just about if it was necessary to put headings on the proposal or titles for each paragraph, or if it was better to just kind of follow a standard paragraph approach. That's up to you. You can do whatever you'd like. There's no real guideline that readers have of whether or not, or expectation of whether or not that would happen. But if you feel that titles help you organize your proposal better, then you're welcome to do that. Okay, so this proposal is about exercise at school. A local high school is planning to require all students to take a physical education class for 1 hour every day. Some students and parents are excited about this idea, but others are not. Write a proposal to the principal of the school evaluating the different sides of this issue and explain what you think should be done. Include one piece of information given above to support your response.
So, exercise at school. The last few decades have witnessed an increasing advancement in technology, which has affected every aspect in our everyday lives. This development has provided children with many things to do in their leisure time, which has resulted in them living a sedentary life and not getting enough exercise. The local high schools plan to require all students to take a physical education class for 1 hour on a daily basis, has raised a fair amount of controversy. People in favor of that happening understand the benefits of physical exercise, which are in fact plenty. First and foremost, while you're exercising, your brain emits specific hormones which help make you happier and more relaxed. Who would not want that after a stressful day? With reference to a recent study, the top 3 benefits of exercise are better sleep, stress relief, and improvement in mood. Additionally, one must bear in mind that exercise has many forms, including team sports, such as football and volleyball. The excitement of some students and parents is reasonable, considering children will not only have fun while concurrently exercising, but also develop a number of fundamental virtues. Specifically, some of these virtues are solidarity, teamwork, discipline, I guess, understanding. Another factor supporting this idea is the fact that exercise in conjunction with healthy eating habits are necessary for a complete healthy lifestyle. Unfortunately, it is true that children nowadays have a tendency to prefer junk food over a proper home-cooked meal. These bad habits lead to obesity. According to Marcia Robbins, a physician, we're seeing more general health problems in obesity than ever on a worldwide scale. On the other end of the spectrum, there are those who disagree with the high school plan. It is true that some children are not fond of exercise. Maybe it is not their ideal hobby. In some cases, children feel inhibited to work out in front of their classmates. Furthermore, it is possible that they are not getting enough exercise from extracurricular activities and do not need to exercise to school. In this case, a recess could be better, maybe an extra hour to do their homework. In any case, this extra hour could be filled with a music, theater or arts class, something that all children are comfortable with. To sum up, it is my firm conviction that both sides have merit. In my opinion, the best solution is balance. Physical education hours should be optional. Children who opt out of this class should be offered a different class conducive to the preferences of the majority of them. That way, everybody's happy.
So what did you think about this one?
Yes.
Satisfactory. I believe it is. Amazing. Good use of vocabulary. Perfection.
They're perfect.
Great. Okay. Take a look at the commentary for this one. So for task completion, the writer clearly addresses the topic, discussing different viewpoints and proposing a solution. Additionally, he integrates 2 of the 3 sources very well. In terms of development, the ideas in the response are extensively developed and supported and logically organized. There is effective use of paragraphs, each elaborating on a central idea. Language, a high level of control of grammatical structures and vocabulary is included. An authorial voice. There is original content and examples, and this is a very engaging response. So this is overall a satisfactory response. We have a question about rhetorical questions in the essay. Absolutely, that's a great way to engage the reader, the use of rhetorical questions. It's not the only way. There are a lot of different ways to engage your reader, but that is one example.
Great, good comment. Thanks for all your responses.
Yeah.
And let's see through the Q&A. Yeah, there were a few comments, but great. So some more tips about preparation for the exam in this way, and I'm sure you're doing a lot. How do you practice outside of the classroom? That was one of the questions that we asked when you registered for this webinar. Can you tell us a little bit more about what you do when you're outside of your class and how you work on your English and you practice different skills in some way? Reading a lot of books.
Reading books.
Reading, that's great.
Movies.
Speaking with Native Americans, reading books, social media,
Watching Friends.
watching movies, more books, international meetings,
Oh, Instagram. Okay. Social media. Video
playing
games.
video games. That's great. In English, working on your strategy. That's great. Excellent.
Mhm.
Great ideas. So these are your responses, or the majority of those of you that responded to this question, how do you practice English? The majority mostly watch TV, movies, YouTube, watch videos on your phone, but mostly in English. So that will help you, definitely help you. And in second place, we have reading. It's really great. It's a great listening to Taylor Swift.
Taylor Swift. Yeah. Why not?
Writing literature texts. Excellent. So you see a variety of different activities, and so pick the ones that you're most interested in, but it's great to see how engaged you are with the language and improving your English and using it for real purposes to understand, to, well, watch and listen, hear, but also try to find ways to how you can practice it more actively in terms of your speaking and your writing. Don't just focus on listening and reading. Listening and reading will definitely help you, and those are two important sections of the test. And try to, in addition to that, work on your more productive skills and how you express yourself when you're writing and when you're speaking with other people for different purposes. But you see a variety of different things, so it was really encouraging to see how engaged you are with the language overall outside of a classroom, and probably not because your teacher told you to do anything. It's more like what you want to do in this case. So there were some questions that you had about exam preparation, how to become a better writer, what you can do about what you're doing in general with the language, improving your grammar skills. Your teachers will have a lot of suggestions to help you, and they know what you're doing so far and what you might need to do. So we won't get into that. There's a lot of individual feedback that you will probably need to identify what in particular you need to work on. Some of the three main tips that I can share with you are basically to improve your writing are to, number one, write, number two, write, and number three, write. You need to practice writing in different ways and find different opportunities to explain your ideas by yourself, working with somebody else, working with your friends or peers, or in a class or outside of a class, but do write by yourself. And the more you write, the more you practice, like any other skill, the more you will improve all the different skills that you need in order to explain your points of view clearly. As Rachel was explaining, also, it's important to read the instructions clearly and to make sure that you understand the prompt and you understand the task in itself. You can find several resources to do that on our website. You can find the samples of different additional samples of performance for essays, articles, and proposals with commentaries and more information than what Rachel just did with some of the samples that we shared today. But reading those, you can see why a type of response might be satisfactory or not, and what it might need in order to develop further and be successful in that particular response. Rachel, do you want to comment on this one and helping them understanding what they can do from reading the rating scale?
Sure, absolutely. I would suggest becoming familiar with the rating scale, because this is what readers are going to be looking at when rating your writing. So, even if there are certain things that you might think, oh, this is really important, this is what is actually being used to score your response. So number one, the most important thing, reading the instructions and making sure that you're integrating all the different instructions in your response. Making sure that you have the development in your response that's necessary. It's not exactly just a matter of length. You could have a short response that's well developed or a longer response that is not as well developed. So making sure that you have an in-depth consideration of the topic and just expanding on those ideas with examples and integrating the sources and just using as much support as you can. Of course, including grammatically complex sentence structures and sophisticated vocabulary. I would just suggest practicing with those as much as you can at home. And then for authorial voice, making sure that you're integrating ways of engaging your audience, your reader. So a lot of you said that you do read. So looking up opinion articles, looking up different essays that incorporate those, the ways of engaging the reader. Somebody mentioned the rhetorical questions. That's one example. But thinking about it and thinking, is this response engaging to me? Does it make me want to keep reading? Why? Thinking about that and thinking about how you can include those strategies into your own writing is going to be very helpful.
And there was a question about improving vocabulary. It's one of the things that will help you with vocabulary is reading, definitely. But do take notes of, keep a vocabulary journal or write down a few words every day and go over your lists from the previous days on a regular basis. You need to be exposed to the same new words many times in order to internalize them and be able to understand them and use them in your own language later on. So the more you read and the more you're exposed to paying attention to very specific words and how they are used in different contexts will help you to understand them better and to eventually use them yourself. But watching videos, for example, with subtitles will help you understand a few details and some words that might not be that clear if you're just listening to the video itself. There are different things, and probably your teachers can give you additional tips for that purpose as well.
We got one question that I just wanted to respond to really quickly. Why is number 2 of authorial voice empty? Can you go back for 1 second, Fernando? So you'll see that in the entire scale, there are points, like, for example, the number 2 for authorial voice that are empty, that don't have descriptions, but it just has a star. And if you look at the bottom of the scale, the reason is that the response shares features of adjacent levels. So for authorial voice, if we have a response where the content is highly original, but it's not engaging for the reader, that sharing, that would be a sharing adjacent responses. And so it would get a 2 because it's sharing characteristics of a 3 and a 1.
Mm-hmm. So a few more tips. I'm going to go on.
Okay, so just tips for preparing for ECPE writing. For sure, reading examples and commentaries that are provided by us, and you'll have access to these after the presentation's over. Practicing timed writing, even practicing with a little bit less time than you might have on the actual day of the test. So if you're practicing writing for 40 minutes and getting your response completed by then, the day of the test, you're going to have a little bit extra time, and that will make you feel like you can have enough time to complete your response. Practice writing realistic arguments for and against a certain viewpoint, researching ways to engage the reader, and reading academic articles on topics of your interest, just so you're getting information and seeing examples of high-level quality writing, maybe writing down vocabulary and expressions that you learn from those as well.
So thinking about, there were several questions about how long you have. It's limited time, obviously, to write your essay, article, or proposal. How can you do well in a limited amount of time? Do spend a few minutes at the beginning of your writing section planning what you're going to say. Really spending a couple of minutes will help you save a lot of time in organizing your response, how you're writing your positive sides, the negative side, or how you're organizing the whole response. And remember to consider different points of view. Write a brief outline so that you can easily explain them when you're moving on throughout the whole response. And you don't have to go back of what did I do before. So you keep track of what you're doing with that brief outline that you can brainstorm from the beginning, considering all the different aspects to complete the task. Try to include your own original content, not just language taken from the prompt, from how the task is presented. Make sure that you're including your own ideas, that you're clearly supporting your opinions. Don't just mention a main idea without examples or how you're supporting that, why that is important. Remember to use the sources to support your arguments, but don't just rely and just include the source from one of the three sources that you were provided, and just disconnect it from the rest of the whole point. Make sure that it is clearly linked to what the argument that you're trying to elaborate on, and this is contributing to that main idea. And find connections between the topic and your personal experiences or knowledge to help you feel more confident about what you're talking about. So for example, I found these 3 articles online recently. What do you think if we were going to consider this? We're not going to include this. We already talked about social media and some of the samples before, but so this is not going to be one of the prompts for ECPE soon. But if you see something like this, if you are reading articles, news, and you find articles like these, how do you think you could connect these to a possible topic for an essay or article, or even a proposal based on these headlines? What do you think the main topic could be about? The dangers of social media, the right use of the internet. Yeah, there are many angles. Influence on children, how social media impacts, positive and negative effects of these decisions. Yeah, there are many ways how this can be considered and how you can elaborate on this, but you can find examples of controversial topics that might affect you, your city, you personally, your friends, your citizens of a country, a group of people, and things that you can easily explore to start writing and practicing expressing your ideas, either as an opinion article or as an essay or as a proposal. You can decide how you're adapting it, but you can work with your teacher, but on some options. But definitely when you're reading and when you're looking at the news, you can find different things that will probably trigger those ideas that could be easily used to explain your views in any of the forms that we're going to propose in ECPE Writing. So these are just some ideas for you to consider. And a few more things about developing some of the questions that you had. We already talked about several of these. How many words? It's not about how many words you need to include. Don't count the words when you're writing. It's basically the development and how well you're explaining the main arguments, but it's not about the number of words. There may be many words or very few words, and it can be a successful written performance, but it's not directly related to the number of words. It's the content that you're explaining. It's how well it is developed, how well it is supported, but not by number of words. Can it depend on the prompts to develop? No, you have to elaborate a little more than that, than just the prompts. Don't just rely on the sources and the prompt itself. To be more advanced, remember to use the advanced grammar and vocabulary, more sophisticated. We talked about these questions as well. Should I write in first person? Rachel, any suggestions?
So I think it depends on the genre. So if you're thinking about an opinion article, it's probably more appropriate to write first person versus an essay, which is a bit more formal. I don't think that, it's not necessarily that points would get taken away for writing the first person. We've been getting the same question from Theodore also about an exclamation point. So I'm just going to address that too. Yeah. So think about writing and formal writing. Are exclamation points used? Probably not overused. Maybe if it's in a strategic way as part of the opinion article, but in general, for formal writing, we don't have a variety of exclamation points. And yeah, writing in the first person, I think it just depends on the genre.
So we talked about the level of expectations for writing at the C2 level, the ECPE level of complexity in terms of written task and the language that you're using to explain your opinions, different tasks, different samples of performance, a few tips to work on the language. Remember how you're using what the exam will help you with in some way with your personal goals, with your future expectations in some way. For many of you, it's to complete your English studies, to meet graduation requirements, to get a job, to travel, to apply to a university. So think about the main reasons why you really need English when you're practicing for ECPE. And that will keep you motivated and engaged in terms of different tasks that you need to keep doing in order to improve those skills. So thanks we're already out of time. We have a few more questions only if you want to still stay for a couple of minutes. Did you see anything else, Rachel, that needed attention? We answered the majority of the questions throughout the presentation.
Yeah, there's one question in the chat. Does an essay pass if we write an essay with good vocabulary and grammar, but it's short? So if a response is shorter, that probably is telling you that it's not going to be as well developed as it should be for ECPE. So I would, and obviously like grammar and vocabulary are very important, but the development, making sure that you're fulfilling the task requirements, giving your opinion, integrating the sources, all of that means that you're not going to end up with a short response that's going to be successful for the ECPE. So think about it in terms of a couple of different well-developed paragraphs, an introduction, a couple body paragraphs, perhaps a conclusion. In terms of development, that's going to be what's needed. Sure.
Perfect. And thanks for all your participation, your suggestions. You came up with many good ideas about using that social media news articles to generate different samples of performance or writing about those topics. So good thinking, keep doing that as you find more engaging news or something that might be interested for you. Great to interact with you. All the best in your future endeavors, and we'll see you soon at the next webinars that we can offer.